In this presentation, I will be discussing a communication conflict or real conflict in a scene from the movie 500 Days of Summer and analyzing that conflict through the lens of the uncertainty reduction theory. You may be wondering, how will this affect me? Why do I need to sit here for 4 to 7 minutes listening to someone talk about a scene from a movie? Well, I'll tell you why. There are concepts in this theory that will help us recognize uncertainty we may be experiencing in our own relationships. My hope is that this analysis will help you find ways that you can reduce uncertainty in your relationships and make them more of a positive experience. I chose this theory in this scene to analyze because I have personally experienced a lot of uncertainty in some of my relationships recently, and I wanted to better understand why that happens and how to reduce the discomfort I feel. Communication theorists Charles Berger and Richard Calabrese are the ones accredited with the uncertainty reduction theory, also referred to as the initial interaction theory. The goal of the uncertainty reduction theory, according to Berger and Calabrese, is to explain how communication is used to reduce uncertainties between strangers engaging in their first conversation together. Although this is the main goal, the theory has now been expanded to include reducing uncertainty in developed relationships as well. It will be important for us to understand a few key definitions. First, when I say uncertainty, I'm referring to the discomfort felt when there is an unknown in a relationship. Berger and Calabrese define uncertainty as having a number of possible alternative predictions or explanations. So these possibilities or alternative predictions and explanations create discomfort in us. For example, you may be entering a romantic relationship and you feel the desire to tell your significant other that you love them. This kind of expression of affection has not entered your relationship yet, so you're unsure as to whether or not you should tell them you love them. What if they don't feel the same way? Is it too early in the relationship for you to be feeling this way? Is it actually love that you're feeling, or is something else? All of these alternatives and unknowns can cause discomfort because we feel uncertainty in the relationship. Another phrase we'll use is interactive strategies, which is meant to describe the action of engaging with someone in conversation in order to reduce one's own uncertainties about that person and their relationship to them. Relational uncertainty is defined in the communication textbook by West and Turner as a lack of certainty about the future and status of a relationship. Another type of uncertainty we'll touch on is cognitive uncertainty, or the level of uncertainty someone has related to what theirs or another's beliefs or attitudes are. We'll discuss uncertainty avoidance, a tactic that people and cultures use to avoid situations that have high uncertainty levels or are ambiguous. And finally, we'll talk about how different cultures have different levels of uncertainty avoidance. Those with high uncertainty avoidance are considered high context cultures, and those with low uncertainty avoidance are considered low context cultures. Examples of high context cultures would be in countries like Japan, where the communicator doesn't explicitly state what their intended meaning is in their speech, but rather relies on context clues and their relationship with the listener in order to get their point across. An example of a low context culture would be somewhere like the United States. In this culture, people generally rely on direct speech in order to have their intended meaning understood by the listener. 500 Days of Summer focuses around the life of protagonist Tom and his relationship with a girl named Summer. In the scene I'll be analyzing, the two have just come home from the bar where Tom got into a fight with some guy there that was trying to pick up Summer and wouldn't leave her alone. Up to this point in the movie, Tom has viewed everything from a positive outlook and thinks the relationship is going well. Something that bothers him, though, is that Summer hasn't mentioned that she is looking for something serious, whereas Tom is looking for a more committed relationship. Tom and Summer begin to argue about what happened previously in the bar when Tom fought the guy who was hitting on Summer. Tom walks in behind Summer and expresses how crazy the fight was. He doesn't notice Summer's countenance until they both get inside and he realizes she's facing away from him with an upset look on her face. He asks her what's wrong. She replies that she can't believe how uncool he was about the situation, and when Tom tries to defend his actions, Summer tells him she doesn't need his help. Then, in an attempt at uncertainty avoidance, she says, "You know what? I'm really tired. Can we talk about this tomorrow?" And she motions with her eyes towards the door, suggesting that she wants Tom to leave. This is an example of what someone might do in a high-context culture. Instead of telling Tom directly to go home, she expresses how tired she is and asks if they can discuss it at a later date, while motioning with her body language that he should head for the door. As is consistent with high-context cultures, Summer is trying to avoid the discomfort of uncertainty. Tom, however, does not want to practice uncertainty avoidance, and before he leaves, turns around and says, "No, you know what? I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's going on." He's using an interactive strategy to reduce uncertainty by engaging in conversation with Summer about why she's upset. He's experiencing cognitive uncertainty with Summer because he doesn't understand why her attitude about the situation is different than his. He's confused that she has a negative attitude toward him fighting another guy on her behalf because his belief is that it was the right thing to do. Another point of analysis in this scene is that Tom is using direct speech to reduce his cognitive uncertainty, which is something that is commonly done in low-context cultures. This is consistent with the fact that Tom is originally from and currently lives in the United States. Summer does as well, but perhaps it is more common for women to communicate in a high context way, or maybe it is due to the culture that Summer was raised in and the fact that she's from a different state than Tom. This picture shows the following interaction between Tom and Summer as Summer replies to Tom asking what's going on. Nothing's going on. We're just. Tom says, What? We're just what? Summer replies, We're just friends. Tom is incredibly frustrated by this response because he feels that their relationship has moved past the point of friendship. At this point, we can see that Tom's uncertainty transitions into relational uncertainty. He's unsure of the status of their relationship because he feels he's receiving mixed messages. On one hand, Summer continues to repeat that she doesn't want a serious relationship and that they're just friends. On the other hand, she seems to be communicating to him through physical gestures that their relationship has crossed the boundary of just friends. Uncertainty can be frustrating and anxiety-inducing in a relationship, especially in a romantic one. In Interpersona, an international journal on personal relationships, the authors state, although uncertainty is not necessarily negative or bad, relational uncertainty often is negative and episodic. Malcolm Parks and Mara Adelman did further research into developed relationships within the context of uncertainty reduction theory, and found that the less uncertainty people feel, the less likely they will be to dissolve a relationship with another. In the case of Tom and Summer, it might be helpful for them to use the interactive strategy more in their relationship to help reduce uncertainty. Specifically in the case of Tom, if he had used this approach sooner in the relationship, he may have been able to then decide whether the relationship would work out or not, because it would eliminate his relational uncertainty. And he could decide if it would be worth it to continue the relationship, since he and Summer both had different expectations of what the relationship outcome would be. Another concept that could have helped would be if Summer better understood how Tom communicated, in a low context way, and if Tom better understood how Summer communicated, in a high context way. I learned from researching this concept and analyzing the scene for 500 Days of Summer that interpersonal communication is very complex and can have multiple levels to it. There are a lot of ways to go wrong in our communication with others, especially with loved ones, and it's important to find ways to better understand and communicate with each other so that we can reduce uncertainty in our lives and improve and develop our relationships with others. Charles Berger describes the basic core of this theory by saying, uncertainty reduction theory talks about the struggle, in a sense, that people have in their everyday lives in adapting to an ever-changing world.